BWL is coming out on Thursday, so it's time to start looking at the best talents and gear for each spec and other items we want to look out for in the raid. Before we start, I just want to give a massive shout out to my newest members, Joe, NSK, Triple Cross, Daniel and Tony. You guys are absolute legends. I can't thank you enough for supporting me on my journey, and it's really appreciated. Thank you. So to start, let's look over Mage in general for BWL. Sadly, I have lost all my BWL footage, so you're just going to have to look at the lovely sights of Azeroth. As you can see here, as usual, Fire has higher average DPS for BWL than Frost. However, the margin is much smaller than MC, and you have to deal with the majority of the raid being fire immune, so it's better if I explain for every single boss. So for the first boss, Razorgore, he is not immune to fire, so fire is simply the best for this boss. For the second boss, Vel'Saraz, he is a dragon, so he is immune to fire, but this boss has a major pushback mechanic. So unless you're going to spend a lot of gold and carefully plan your fire protection potions to be able to cast properly, even still, casting Frostbolt is actually very annoying for the average guild. So the secret tech here for the average player is to use arcane missiles. Even if you're not spec'd into improved arcane missiles, you can very quickly rechannel it and maintain the missiles going forward. So if you're playing fire or even arcane frost, you'll probably just cast these missiles to maximize your DPS. Therefore, the spec doesn't actually matter too much. This boss is all about melee DPS and you won't be anywhere near the top. For the Broodlord Lasher, he is not fire immune and fire actually slaps him so hard. Firemore again is a dragon and is immune to fire, but this boss is a pain for us regardless of what spec. You have to manage your stacks and line of sight for half of the fight. The rest of it is dealing with pushback and wing buffet. So again, casting arcane missiles in that window is pretty good. I guess what I'm trying to say is we're not going to be anywhere near the top of the DPS for this fight, so being fire makes no odds here. For Ebonrak and Flamegore, they are both dragons and they are both fire immune. These bosses are pretty simple, but don't expect to be anywhere near the top of the meters, so again, it doesn't really matter. For Cro-Magus, he is not fire immune, and it's probably the greatest argument for fire ever. This boss becomes fire vulnerable, and when he does, you can absolutely destroy this boss. If you're an alliance, you can ask for a bot because of threat, but honestly, the amount of damage you can do to this guy is actually mental. This is the biggest argument to play fire of all time. You may not be great versus the Drakes, but damn, you're an absolute legend for this fight. The numbers are incredible. And then finally, for the final boss, Nefarian, he is fire immune, and this is the only boss I would say in the whole instance where Frost is really needed. So you can play a big role in this fight, whereas the other guys, it's not too important. So in summary, Frost on paper seems like the best option, but if you choose to play fire, you can use the Frost Fire spec and your overall damage is actually going to be higher than the Frost Mages. This is mostly due to the amount of damage that you deal on the fights that aren't fire immune, but the absolute best play here is utilizing dual spec. If you don't really care about having a proper PvP spec or you have tons of gold, then I would recommend running both Arcane Frost and Fire and then just respecking as needed. But most importantly for Nefarian at the end, I can't really argue, Frost Mage is great for this boss. Obviously you can see all my talent builds in my spreadsheet, but just as a reminder, this is the best Arcane Frost build. You can choose to put these 2 points wherever you want, but I like Magic Absorption the most. You could also change your Frost channeling to Arctic Reach, but this is probably the best spec to take. As always, you're utilizing your arcane power to do massive Frostbolt damage. It is the best spec for Frost. And then again for my Frost Fire spec, I've explained this in a previous video. This is having all the best talents in Fire, whilst having the best talents in Frost as well. So you can change your gear around and use Frost damage. You will still pass as Fire. You can find all of these in my spreadsheet. The link is in the description. And now let's look at the BiS gear. I will show 3 sets here, one for Frost, one for Fire, and then a set with no specific spell school, as well as some items you can pick up in the raid. Just quickly, I want to talk about the Neverwind tier set. While we won't actually use this set in raids, it's still worth to pick up. It's a decent set to farm with due to the blizzard increased radius, but it can also be very fun to play in PvP. So if you plan to do either of those things, I'd recommend picking up this set just to put in the bank and use later. So we'll start with the Frost best in slot gear. Of course, there will be a link in my spreadsheet, but I will offer alternative items on this video and I will explain a little bit more in depth. So first, obviously we have this very nice head from the Therian. This is the best in slot for all of the specs. One thing to note is about the Arcanist set. Now you should already have the Arcanist 3 set, which gives you 18 extra spell damage. Now it's very important that you take this into account when upgrading, as you're also losing 18 points the second you drop the set. If you remember, as I explained in my mage guide, that we have something called equivalency points. Well, one spell damage is 1 point, so the second you lose the set bonus, you lose 18 points. So this hat may well be an 18 point upgrade, but you've got to take into account that you're dropping the set. Therefore, it's not worth dropping the set until it makes sense. So the best would be this hat, the second best would be the Arcanist crown. For the neck, the best is the choker, but obviously this is quite a rare drop. We do have the Orb of the Dark Moon, which you can buy for 1200 tickets as explained in my previous video. It's a very nice neck, and if you don't have the choker, this is the next best. Failing that, you have the Choker of Enlightenment from Lucifron. You can also get the Arcane Crystal Pendant now, so if you want a decent neck option, you can do this quest once the phase begins. If for some reason you didn't want the neck and you wanted the trinket instead, then you have the Star of Mysteria or the Tempest Talisman. Next, on the shoulder, we have the Mantle of the Blackwing Cabal. This comes from Razorgore the Untamed. It's a very nice shoulder. Otherwise, you've got the Boreal Mantle, or you might have the PvP shoulders or the Arcanist shoulders, depending on what's dropped for you. Having that Arcanist 3 set in Phase 2 is very important, and having the 2 set for PvP is still BiS. For the cloak, we've got the Cloak of the Broodlord from the Therian, highly contested. Failing this, get the Amplifying Cloak. If you get this cloak, you're doing very well. For the braces is the Braces of Arcane Accuracy from the Broodlord Lashlayer. These are very nice braces, but as explained previously, you only want to replace the Arcanist set once it makes sense. Now for the weapon, I've got the rank 14 Mage Blade here, as it will be coming out in this phase, but obviously that won't be available for a few weeks. So the next best would be the Staff of the Shadow Flame from the Therian, or the Claw of Cro-Magus. Now, if you didn't get a weapon from Molten Core, you can also look at this Shadow Wing Focus Staff. It drops from quite a few bosses. It's not the best staff in the world by any means, but if you haven't got anything yet, you can pick it up. For the offhand, of course, we have the Tome of the Ice Lord. If for some strange reason you're not exalted with AV yet, you have the Drakestone from Sunken Temple, or just go for the Spirit of Aquamentus. For the gloves, we're actually going with the PvP gloves. This is because the 2 set is still BiS. Now you can play around with this depending on what drops for you. Using your equivalency points, you'll work out what's best for you. For example, the Neverwind gloves are 10 points better for me, but if I tried to get the PvP head, it's 22 points worse. If I tried to get the PvP shoulders, it's 12 points worse, etc. So it's about what drops for you and fitting in the best place to get the 2 set while having the best points possible. With the belt, it's a hard one. The Firemore's Clutch has actually simmed higher for me the majority of the time, but the Mana Igniting Cord has a higher top end. There's not much between them. If you have this Mana Igniting Cord, that's fine. You might want to pass this one for one of your teammates, but if you don't have the Mana Igniting Cord yet, you'll have the Firemore's Clutch. Again, I sound like a broken record, but if you're stuck with the Arcanist belt like me for the 3 set, then you'll want to keep hold of this and don't drop it till it makes sense. For the legs is the PvP legs, as explained previously. This is to keep the 2 set. And now for the boots, these are actually huge and they're 26 points better than the PvP boots. They give you 40 frost damage and they give you 1% hit. Now these actually drop from the trash inside the raid. So if you can get them, it's absolutely huge for Frost. For the rings, we have the Band of Force Concentration, along with a Ring of Spell Power. One ring to look out for here is the Ring of the Black Rock. It gives you 19 spell damage, on par with the Maiden Circle, and you might not be able to afford a Freezing Band depending on how much they are. So if this drops and you need it, then obviously pick it up. But yeah, the very best is the Band of Force Concentration from Ebon Rock. And the Ring of Spell Power allegedly drops from all of these bosses, but I have not seen one yet. And then the trinkets, obviously BWL is famous for the mage trinkets that we'll use for the majority of the expansion. This is the Nefarian's Tear, which is 2% hit and 44 spell damage. It's huge. And the Mind Quickening Gem, which is absolutely amazing. So definitely pick these up. And then for the wand, actually the Cold Snap is the best, but not many people have done world bosses. The Wand of the Biting Cold from the AV quest is actually the best. So that's it for the Frost best in slot gear. These are the very best items in the exact spaces, but like I said, you want this PvP set and you don't want to break the Arcanist set until it makes sense. For fire, it's very similar. We'll use the PvP shoulders, and this is because the gloves of the Hypnotic Flame. These gloves are absolutely amazing. You'll also use the Mana Igniting Cord and the Neverwind Pants, and then have your 2 set from the PvP boots and the shoulders. You'll also obviously want the Tome of Fiery Arcana, and the Pirate Wand is still the best. Otherwise, it's very much the same as the Frost set. And then for this final set, it's raw spell damage, no specific spell school. This one is great if you use the Frost Fire build and you don't want to change your gear around. It's basically the same as the Fire set, but you'll use the Neverwind gloves instead of the Hypnotic Flame, the Pharaoh's Touch from the AV Exalted Reputation, and the Bone Creeper Stylus. You can get add-ons to quickly swap in and out your gear, so it might not be necessary to run a set like this, but if you just want a set that's raw spell damage and you like to use both fire and frost, this is the best one. So again, just to quickly go over some items that are not best in slot but they could be worth picking up, that is the Ring of the Black Rock. It's a decent ring and you might need it. The Shadow Wing Focus Staff, I've seen loads of these drop in the past, and if you didn't get a weapon from Molten Core, then this is the next best. Same with the Claw of Chromagus. This is really nice one. I feel bad for the mage in my guild who just literally last week won this Spell Blade, because this Mage Blade will be replaced very quickly now. So yeah, don't waste any more soft reserves on the Molten Core Blade. And then finally, for the belt, we actually have this Angel Lister's Grasp. It doesn't give any spell damage, but it does give 2% hit. So it is actually the third best belt. So yeah, that's everything for the sets. You'll find all of the details in the spreadsheet below. If there's one thing to take from this video, it's that you want to manage your PvP set and you're having your Arcanist set. Don't break the Arcanist set too early. And a huge thank you. If you're not subscribed to me already, please consider subscribing. And yeah, BWL is a really fun raid and I can't wait to get in there. Thanks for watching this video, guys, and have a lovely day.